Okay, welcome back to another episode of the Shed Geek Podcast. I am here with Ryan today. Ryan, do you just kind of want to take a moment to introduce yourself, who you are, a little bit about what you do, and how you know the shed industry?
Sure. So my name is Ryan Malham. I own Hinton Buildings. We have 3 locations in the eastern part of North Carolina, in Princeton, Kinston, and Dunn. And we started our shed journey back in January of 2015. I had just come back from Afghanistan after spending 4 years there as a contractor. And my father was in this industry already down in Georgia, and he asked me if I wanted to sell some buildings. And my initial response was, no, I don't want to sell these little buildings. And I went down to Georgia and I watched him sell some buildings. I saw how easy it was. And I said, well, I think I can do that. And we started out. We rented a lot near our home and got some sheds out there. And then I sat out there freezing everything off in the middle of February and March. And it was just cold. And we were not selling very many buildings. Very, very discouraging. Fortunately, the company that I worked for in Afghanistan called me and they said, hey, your job's been open for 6 months. Would you like to consider coming back? And so that was a very tough decision for me because I knew the people, I knew the job, I knew the money, I knew what to expect, and I could do it. I'd done it for 4 years. And I also knew that I wanted to get this business going. So I made a deal with my wife. I said, I'm going to go back to Afghanistan. You figure out how to sell these buildings. And when you're making as much as I'm making in Afghanistan, I'll come home. It took about 1.5 years for her to finally get things rolling. And I was working with her as well from there, doing anything I could do remotely, making pictures and videos and website and Facebook posts and anything else that would help the marketing. I was also able to basically be my own angel investor by investing my own income into the business for many, many months. So it was a lot of Facebook dollars spent out of the money I was making in Afghanistan.
Very cool. So whenever you came back and you hopped into it full time, what did you think whenever you got back? You're like, hey, I still want to do this. We're just gonna put both feet in. We're gonna go for it and see what happens.
We did, and we went to work 7 days a week. We were both out there just working hard at a lot, and we had some other salespeople at one point. Some of them worked out, some didn't, and got down to the point where it's just the two of us. And we were working really 7 days a week. And then at one point we decided, it really doesn't make much sense to be here on Sundays, not getting a lot of actual purchasing. We get some browsers, and if they really want our building, they'll come back on Monday. And we were able to do that for many years. And then we eventually added a second location in Dunn in 2018. So we're celebrating our 5-year anniversary at that location. And that took about 6 months for me being down there every day that we were open 6 days a week. And then we eventually went down to 5 days a week last summer. We were doing kind of like a rolling schedule where we'd have the 3 different locations. And it got kind of complex because I was kind of the fill-in person when the employees only worked 5 days a week and they took 1 day off. I would be over there trying to fill in. So it was better just to have everyone work 5 days on the same 5 days. And then we're just closed on Sundays and Mondays.
So now, was your career like contracting with the military, or were you in the military?
I was not in the military. I was a contractor with a private military contracting company. And okay. I ran a multimedia studio in Afghanistan trying to help create video products and photo products and posters and booklets to support the training of the Afghan army. And so it was challenging because the Afghan Army's average education level is about 3rd grade. So really we're effectively teaching children to go fight war. And so you're teaching them very, very basic things. And my crew of local Afghans did a really good job of providing all of the translation and the editing and the interface with the Afghan Army. And I just was supervising all of that and giving them some direction.
What I had a few family members go over. What did you find your experience was like while you were there in Afghanistan?
Well, I would say that like everything in life, your experience varies greatly, and you could have one person that might be uh, private in the middle of some valley someplace where they're there constantly getting shelled, getting shot at, getting rocketed every day for 6 months. Or you're like us. I was in the capital city, and we did have some explosions. We had some rockets that would come in and mortars and things like that. They would blow up. It was pretty uncommon, but towards the end it got more common. So it get a little uncomfortable when you had rockets coming in every couple of nights, trying to shoot you, kill you, or whatever. And people trying to blow you up whenever you drive in the vehicle. So it really can vary dramatically from. I've had other family members that have been in different parts of the country, and they had a totally different experience than I did, even though it was the same country.
I'm sure. Yeah, it's got to be, well, I mean, just such a culture shock. And then on top of it, all of the unrest that's happening at that moment. So you've got the culture to deal with for one, which is hard enough for anybody who's traveled. They realize that.
It really is a very, very different world in that part of the world. And if more Americans would spend some time outside the country, especially in the third world countries in Asia and Africa, they would come back to the US and literally kiss the soil because they would realize how good we have it. Even though we're not perfect, we're certainly far from it. But the average person here is far, far wealthier than most people in the rest of the world by hundreds of times. And it makes a dramatic difference when you're in a country like ours that is built on a lot of great foundations. Nothing's perfect. Of course, we have room to improve, but it's far better than any other country in the world.
Yeah. What did you end up taking away? I know we're kind of off topic here from Sheds, but what did you take away from that experience? I mean, to me, sitting down and having these conversations, it's not just as much about sheds. We could talk about the nuance of sheds and double top plates and 16 OC and all that stuff all day long. But I guess my thought is it's the people business. And I'm just kind of curious your overarching thoughts after being there and then obviously coming back and being very thankful for the country. And thank you for your service as well. Certainly appreciate that you served on our behalf over there to represent our country in the role that you did. But I guess what I'm thinking is, how do you put all that into a box now once you've come back?
It's challenging because you sort of compartmentalize a lot of things while you're there. You really have to just think about what you're doing that day, not try to think about your family so much because it is very stressful when if you're focused on your family, your kids, other loved ones back home. You have to it really did feel to me like I was going into a deep dive, like these snorkelers that they'll dive down hundreds of feet on one breath. And I would go down for 6 months and I'd be in this deep dive. And then I would come up after 6 months, come home for 3 weeks and feel like I'm taking a huge breath of air after being there, because it is such a strange world that whole society experiences. And it's not necessarily the people's fault. It's just the circumstances they find themselves in. It's really unfortunate. Most of the Afghans have never known anything but war or unrest in their life, and terrorism and lots of forces that cause damage in their country. And it's very challenging for people to move beyond that until you get some kind of secure and safe place where you know that tomorrow you'll be able to eat and you'll have a home. And it's challenging when you're dealing with today.
I always refer to this book because it was a life-changing book to me, but Prayers Doesn't Make Any Difference by Philip Yancey. And one of the things he said in there is it's kind of hard to pray sometimes a prayer of thankfulness with for today's meal with a cupboard full of food. It doesn't really hit you until, where is the next meal coming from? Where will I sleep tonight? That takes on a whole new meaning. And we should certainly be thankful.
Yeah, it does. And, we would get these alerts when we had incoming rockets or missiles coming in, and you had about 3 seconds to do something before it would go boom. And you had a very short period of time to say a prayer, and there wasn't any place to go. We'd be in our bedroom, which is basically a glorified refrigerator. with foam and metal plates on the walls, and there's nothing that was going to stop those rockets from tearing those buildings to shreds if they actually hit. And so you just had to hope that it went thump someplace and not boom near you. And it's a fact of life. It's rather strange thing for most people to relate to that, because most people, unless they've been in the military or have been into a third world where there's been such kind of rockets coming in, it's difficult for people to understand the way you have to cope with that, because it is a constant threat. You know that they are out there. You know they're somebody sitting out on a edge of a mountainside with some rocks and a timer, and they use all kinds of methods to set these things off. So it was challenging. You had to just expect it and get used to it. And I'm glad that I'm not there anymore.
Hello, Shed Builder. This is the Shed Geek, here to tell you about one of the coolest things I've seen. The first of its kind, the Joey Pivot Lift. I have visited hundreds of shed manufacturing shops across the country. And one of the first things shop owners and shed builders mention is the amount of fatigue that is placed on the everyday builder. If you own a shed shop, you know that your builder is an asset to your future. With the Joey Lift, you'll see more production, and your builder will appreciate you investing in their well-being by replacing the thousands of steps they have to take up and down a ladder all day. The Joey Lift is perfect for shed builders, roofers, painters, and laborers working to add that special layer of detail on your shed. It's so easy, even a geek can drive it. Well, thank you for all that you did, and if nothing else, it's a reminder for us today to know to don't forget to be thankful, and don't forget to appreciate. Like you said, we're imperfect. We're an imperfect country. You know what? We're an imperfect industry and probably an imperfect business and all kinds of other things in our own individual lives. But you know what? To be thankful and just to be able to appreciate what we do have, which is tons of opportunity. And that includes selling sheds. That includes building and hauling sheds and being able to make a living doing this, this wonderful thing that we all seem to enjoy so much. I guess some do it because, but I identify with the people who do it because they really enjoy it. And, you struck me as one of those guys really early on, whenever we connected, when we first met. Also want to talk about the hat. Check out the hat. Do a little dip down there. Look at that. Make buildings great again.
Yeah, we made a whole bunch of these up a couple of years ago, and we were giving them out when people would buy buildings, and they really were a hit. People loved them. And this is, I think, the last one left that I kept in my personal collection, and I wear it occasionally. I mean, it's still a good statement, I think, and people appreciate it when they see it.
Man, I got to figure out what to do to get one of those hats. If you order more, I'll exchange. I don't have any hats. I need to get some hats made. I'll trade you a shirt or a coffee cup. What do you think?
We could probably put something out. Yeah.
Okay.
I love it. Make buildings great again. Have you gotten any hate? Like people hadn't even read it yet, and then they're already mad at you.
They didn't realize what it said.
People that associate the hat with the MAGA, and they don't even read it. They just see the style. They're instantly, triggered, but that's their thing. They just didn't read it.
Something to be said for marketing there, right? I guess. I don't know.
Be, cutting edge if we can.
No, it's great. I love the hat, man. So tell me a little bit about Hinton's buildings. What do you feel like as you got into this, and we appreciate your past, and you start selling regularly, you went through a few sales folks. Did you find that just kind of hard to find the right help, or did you find that it was just
possible for you and your wife to?
Well, the people that we went through, we had the very first person. I thought that I was doing her a favor because she was unemployed on public assistance, and I thought, well, I'm doing a great job. I'm improving the economy. I'm adding, a job for someone who can work it, make some money. Unfortunately, what I discovered is that she didn't want to make more than a certain amount of money. And that was a real challenge because when you're on commission, she didn't want to make more than, $1,000 a month. And the first month that she made $1,500, I thought she'd be happy. And she was very upset. And I had to deal with that. And eventually she was really sabotaging a lot of customers because I think she realized that if she made too much money, she was going to lose her benefits. And unfortunately, I don't agree with that whole thing. And just very challenging for her to do that. So we let her go. We had another.
Go ahead.
Well, you head out, and I'll answer.
Well, that's a real life experience. What you're talking about right there, that moment. That's something that dealerships have to deal with. I mean, that's sometimes kind of the negative aspect of what we have to deal with, but it's the real aspect too. So I bet a lot of people can identify with what you're talking about. I personally, sure. Like for me, I'm just driven. I think it's okay to find contentment, but if contentment for me means that I might lose some benefits that are meant to eventually crawl me out of that situation, then I haven't really grasped the point of being able to benefit. You could go way beyond $1,500, right? Way beyond with the opportunity. So just not seeing that value, it doesn't align with my convictions as well. So.
Yeah, it's really challenging. I did have another salesperson, and she was great. She really was a go-getter. And unfortunately, the line between her being a salesperson for us and us owning the building business got blurred, and she got confused about that, and we had to let her go. And so that was unfortunate because she really was a good salesperson, and she's the kind of person that you want. But there was some times where unfortunately, me being in the office after I came back from Afghanistan was too much for her to handle because she felt like I was taking away sales from her, which, I do the best I can when I'm in the office to defer to the salespeople if possible, but I'm not going to just let someone get unserviced and stand around, wondering who's going to help them. If I'm standing there, I'm going to go help them. So it's kind of a luck of the draw thing. And we've worked out a pretty good way now. At one of my locations, the main location in Princeton, we do have two people there. I have my daughter and my sister-in-law working there. So family, definitely better than someone off the street as far as being able to trust them when you have customers coming in with sometimes some large amounts of cash to pay for a building or pay for a deposit or whatever they're doing at that point. So I get a little nervous if I have to think about someone else handling all that money and if I'm not there. But with our family being there, it's really worked out very well. And then we've been able to alternate back and forth on those customers. And the luck of the draw, law of averages seems to work out where they get enough good sales, each person, where it's not being diverted to one person more than the other. So I think that works out all right.
Yeah, no, that's good. Everybody can probably identify with the struggle, especially from the sales perspective of so many different models out there that exist. If you have multiple salespeople at a location, I think it seemed like a year or two ago, I was hearing a lot. I can't remember the name of it. I thought it was going to be this big thing. It just kind of fell flat, but it was, shared selling, basically. And the idea was what you said is to get the customer serviced and not to focus on the just the commission outright, like the quota or who, or some people do round robin or whatever it is, and I think you even probably have some of that conversation. I know we certainly did a lot with territory. So if you've got a manufacturer who's got several territories, how do you define that territory physically? And then how do you define that online? Because we obviously see some people's ability to market further out online supersedes maybe one of their peers. What do you do in a situation where that customer could be serviced and you're not able to do that because of the lack of understanding, lack of knowledge, or lack of commitment and participation?
Well, we do the best that we can. I try to be as fair as possible. I don't like the shared selling model. To me, it's a little too socialistic, and it doesn't work for me as far as what I think is a motivation factor for the salespeople. So I really do feel like each salesperson really needs to earn their money so that they know if I don't perform, if I don't service the customer, if I don't give them my best effort, and I'm not going to eat. Basically that's my motivation is, it's a very capitalistic, you work, you get paid, on your results, not on just it's just nice to get money. So that's not, the best way to do it. Sometimes we do get some conflicts. I call it the gray area, where we've even had customers that I think they've dealt with every single person in our company at 3 different lots before they ended up purchasing. And that's where it gets very sticky, trying to figure out who should get the commission, and if it's only one person or if it's being split. In some rare cases, we do split them. Typically, I would prefer to give it to the person that worked with that customer first, but there are some times where there's some confusion if the customer doesn't let us know that they already worked with someone and they come to a different location. That just happened recently, and we did have to split the commission with 2 salespeople, one that initially started with the prospects, and then the one that finished as customers with that couple. And it's definitely a gray area. I have to make a judgment call on that. I wish it was better and more clear cut, but I don't like splitting it because I don't like to take away from what someone's expectations are, that they earned the whole commission. But there are some times when it does make sense to do that.
Hello from the Shed Geek. Let's take a walk through My Shed 3D. With My Shed 3D, your company can simply add a 3D Builder button to its website. Once the customer clicks onto the 3D Builder button, they will enter some basic information to get started. Remember, this information is captured in your Leads tab, whether or not the customer designs a building. This is very valuable information that turns a cold call into a warm lead. Next, they begin the design of their shed by selecting a primary use, a style, and a size that best fits their need. My Shed 3D has multiple styles that are available and consistent with traditional and barn styles within the shed industry. However, if you offer a customized or non-traditional style, My Shed Solutions can build that design for future use. We can also save on some design features that make it easy to adjust without a major rebuild or added fees for design changes. For instance, want to offer a steeper roof pitch? Just navigate to the Settings tab. Then click the Building Models. Click Edit Building and just enter the new roof center height, and the design changes will reflect on this style option. This will save you thousands versus traditional design changes that need to build a whole new style to match your design. From here, simply choose the style, siding, and color. Then choose a trim and roofing style and color. Next, let's add a door. That was goofy. Next, let's add a door. It is required to add a door to move forward with the design, as at least one ingress-egress option is necessary. Then add some design changes for personalization. Maybe some windows, or a porch, or some interior shelving. Next, just click Save Design and the customer will receive an automated text with all the features of the design to the email address entered at the beginning. From here, they can edit the design, view the details of the design, pay now to order the shed, or click Rent to Own to complete the necessary steps to purchase a shed they designed with My Shed 3D. The design enters the admin panel as a quote, and this is where the manufacturer can update the progress of the design once a deposit is taken. My Shed, from design to delivery, we have you covered. Yeah, it can be very difficult to develop. I say it can. Some would disagree with me, but to develop a unit of measurement at times, if it's performance based, I think that especially in sales, I mean, there's definitely a lot of models out there that would say this is the way to do this. It's strictly performance based. You know, as you said, kind of you eat what you kill, that day kind of thing. I would say for me, it just depends. Marketing, what's the, I always get it wrong, and I always like to mention it. I'm paraphrasing, obviously. Half your marketing dollars work, just nobody knows which half.
That's right.
So you're trying to constantly measure performance. I mean, we even do that with Facebook as you sell sheds. I mean, that's what, pay-per-click. I mean, we're constantly trying to figure out the analytics. I think there's two sides of that, and maybe we could just travel down that rabbit hole since we're kind of going that direction with stuff like pay-per-click and analytics. I think there's two sides to that. There's the analytics and there's understanding the analytics, right? It's one thing to say we have, this many impressions or this many engagements on Facebook with clients or whatever. Are those turning into sales? Are those turning into revenue gain? How do you measure that as a owner yourself?
It is a challenge. You're certainly correct there that it's hard to get all the information, and then what do you do with it to analyze it to make some kind of decision about what's working and what's not working. We do run some Facebook ads currently for our metal building sales. We're not currently running any Facebook ads for the wooden buildings. We have our website that has all our wooden building inventory listed on there, and we have our Facebook page that we post to quite frequently. And we sometimes boost some posts depending on what they are, especially some of the sales that we've been running with the wooden buildings lately with our 10% discounts and our 5% on custom builds. And some of that has worked, and it's gotten us some action, I guess you could say. It's hard to get that all the way down to from the click to the purchase because of the way that our system is set up. We don't really have, no one's really buying buildings directly online, at least not with our system. They're being influenced, they're being led to us in some way, they're reaching out for contact, and then they're coming to our website, they're coming to our locations, and they're making a purchase fairly manually in that sense. So it's not really connected to Facebook in the way that if we were selling t-shirts or coffee cups or something like that, where you can directly link, this sale came from this ad, from this campaign, and it cost this much to sell it. And so it's not quite that tight. I wish it was, but I don't see a better way to do that with our current setup.
You kind of answered one question that I wanted to ask you at one point, but whenever you talked about Facebook and creating those posts, what do you think is like a healthy number of Facebook posts to put out constantly? Are you staying in front of the customer every day?
I have gone the whole gamut from not posting anything for days or weeks to literally posting 20 times a day when things happen. So for example, when a customer would create a design for a metal building on our website, we would post a customer generated type post saying, this person from this city designed this building and you can design one by yourself. Let me go back on that. Let me take two, try it out.
Take two.
Yeah. Okay. So I've run the gamut from posting once or twice a week, maybe, or less than that, up to 20 times a day when customers would come into the website. They would request a metal building design, for example, and we would post a picture of the metal building that they designed, a link to that 3D rendering, and say, this person from this city just designed a building, you can too, and then give them a link to do that. And so I've done that where we were probably getting 10 or 15 of those requests a day. So that was 10 or 15 posts. And then I had other posts that we would have automatically put up there. And then I've gone to kind of a moderated version of that where we would just do one post of those designs per day at, for example, 7 p.m. We would do a single post of one of those designs. So one of the last ones that was created by a customer. So we just basically slowed that down. And I've tried doing other things, trying to research to see what the optimal number is. And I've seen a research that says you should maybe post once a week. And if the post is good, then that post will continue to build some attention by getting shares and comments and likes and some interaction with that. And that's what you want, because if you're giving Facebook too many posts, it can't prioritize the right ones. And then you end up basically smearing all of your posts out there and none of them get any traction. I've had some posts, it's been actually quite frustrating. Some posts that will be, I think, the dumbest post in the world gets the most views and clicks and likes and shares. And then I put ones that I think are well-crafted, designed with a nice image, a picture, great copywriting, and it gets 500 views and that's it, and doesn't get any likes or shares. And I can't figure out why people don't do that. So I do have consultants that I work with to try to help me figure out what's better to post on there. And we're constantly trying to improve that and have a better result for each of those organic posts. But it is a constantly moving target with the way that Facebook has moved things around and changed the algorithms. And the way that people are using their phones now is very different than they used 10 years ago, 5 years ago. So it's still a challenge to learn that every day.
Isn't that sort of the difficult thing as a shed seller, is to kind of figure out the algorithm with Facebook, because it seems like a moving target constantly. So once you start doing something, it's meant to generate revenue. I mean, right? Especially with, like, you think of there for a while having a Facebook business page and then having a Facebook group. I mean, I just learned how much more they suppress the business page, because you can actually run ads, right? You can run meta ads on there, and they want you to spend money to be able to boost those things. So I try to get followers, obviously, on Shed Geek Podcast. That is way harder than just throwing a Shed Geek group out, because they don't control the algorithm, and they actually suggest that a little bit more, is my understanding, to people. It's kind of like they take care of the advertisement side for you, because they want to get you in correspondence with other people who might be looking at those keywords, right? Or however they've got that included in the algorithm. So
yeah, and we did find we currently have about 20,000 followers on our Facebook page. Awesome. And it's been just under 20,000 for quite a while. We really stopped focusing on trying to grow that. It seemed like when we were under 10,000, and again, I have very limited, data on all this stuff, because I don't know how much of it is us specifically versus Facebook making changes to the algorithm over time. But it did seem when we had less than 10,000 followers, the rules seemed to be different than they currently are. And when we would do a post, we would get almost immediately, just not even a boosted post, just a regular post, we would get a lot of likes, comments, shares, message threads started with people, and we'd be busy. Now, I think it gets put out for about a minute to 2 minutes. Facebook will post to something like 1% of your list. So we have 20,000, so it goes out to a couple hundred. And if those couple hundred, whoever they happen to be, I'm not even sure if they're the same people or just randomly selected, if they respond well to it, so if you get a couple of likes, shares, interactions, then it will share it to more people. And so that's where the quality of the design of the post is actually very important. I have been experimenting with Facebook. They do have a experimentation lab with the posting. When you do it through the computer, doesn't do it on the iPhone, but on the computer, you can create, I believe it's up to 4 variations of a post, and they will test that for 30 minutes. And then they will tell you which is the winner based on the number of interactions, clicks, likes, comments, shares, all of that. And then that one will get posted to your Facebook page to be kind of like the permanent post. So
it's the same with like thumbnails, right? Like same thing. They'll usually give you a suggestion to see which one's going to potentially reach the most.
Yeah. So there's different ways. So with that experimentation on posts specifically, you can have 4 completely different posts if you wanted to. They could be different copy content. They could be different graphics, different links, different videos, different hashtags, or you could have everything the same except for one aspect. So you put a pretty tight control on it, and maybe it's the same picture with 3 different copy content images or sections there. And you could then determine, okay, well, if we do a short one, a long one, and a medium one, as far as the content goes, maybe one of them performs better with the same graphic. And so I think through enough experimentation, you might be able to find one that does a good job of performing really well. If you find the right sweet spot of a little bit of copy with a great picture, maybe that works best for your audience. And that audience may vary as well. So there's a lot of different variables about if you're targeting people that are in your area, or they live in your area, or that they're traveling through the area. For our business, living is probably the most important thing, because we're not dealing with traveling public too much. With the ads, you can, like you're saying, do multiple thumbnails, and they have this thing called, I believe it's called Ad Advantage, that allows Facebook to vary the creative a little bit to try to figure that out for you. So it is doing some of that experimentation kind of on the fly, which probably is the best way to do it, because it could run thousands of experiments and extrapolate that data much better than you would be able to with our human brains and looking at data and having to spend time doing all the research, the follow up, and then tweaking your ads and trying to figure out what the best copy is.
Have you ever had a customer ask you about how to supply power to their shed? Do you sell electrical kits as an upsell for your sheds currently? Do you want an easy, no-hassle option to offer for your customers when they want to add electric to their sheds? Check out EcoEthics Solar. EcoEthics Solar is looking for shed manufacturers and shed dealers who want to be able to provide a solar electric option to their line of sheds. With EcoEthics Solar, you can purchase the SunSaver, a solar product specifically designed with the shed owner in mind. Want to offer a larger product that can operate a full tiny home? At EcoEthics Solar, they have the necessary product, training, and capacity to meet your customers' needs. Installation for the SunSaver is simple and takes just 45 minutes. You can even install it right there on your sales lot or at the manufacturing facility. EcoEthics Solar even provides hands-on in-person training if necessary. Plus, they will provide you with video tutorials and handouts with specific installation instructions that keeps adding a solar-powered electrical system to your shed fast and simple. In many cases, the end user can even perform the installation once the shed is delivered to their home. If you are interested in purchasing a unit for display and then drop shipping your orders, or even ordering multiple units to have available as you build, contact my friends at EcoEthics Solar at 336-250-1284 or email sales@ecoethicsolar.com. All of this is important for one reason mainly, and that is to get in front of more audience, because the more audience you get in front of, the more potential leads you have. The more leads you have, the more you can close or increase your ratio on closing. What other ways do you try to get in front of an audience? You ran a multimedia company. You probably, and I know just from our conversations, you're pretty schooled at a lot of different things, very knowledgeable. I was so impressed with the very first conversation. What are other ways that you look for to try and that the shed industry could find more success, more leads?
Well, we've done some of the old school things. We've done some print advertising in some newspapers and some local magazines. And we also do billboards. We currently have 7 or 8 billboards in our local area that direct people, whether they're directional, saying 7 miles ahead on the right, or just our website with a picture of a building on there, or saying, we're in this city and that city. And that's worked okay. We do get people that tell us that they do see our billboards. So I feel okay that money that we're spending on that is returning something as far as traffic. And we may not know to the full extent where that is if people don't mention it to us. But when you start putting out multiple streams of advertising, whether it's billboards or Facebook or Google ads or radio, and we've done radio as well. So we've done radio and TV. So it is, we tried a lot of different things. I don't know if all of them worked as well as I would like them to. The radio did not seem to do as well as I'd hoped. I did a lot of like hits when I'd get on the radio with the DJ and do like a live hit where they would talk to me for 4 or 5 minutes, kind of like we're talking now, to describe our business, whatever sales we had. And I had a couple of people tell me they heard us on the radio, but it didn't really seem to work as well as I would hope. Now, we were on just one afternoon oldies station that would do beach music, and that was probably a limited audience compared to someone who might be advertising 7 days a week on a hit station or R&B or whatever their particular high volume radio station in their area would be. They might see some different results there. So I wouldn't rule that out. It's just a matter of getting the right audience that's going to really listen to your ads and actually react.
That's definitely the key, is finding the right audience and being able to target that market. And you can target a huge market, right? Like it's obviously it's not anyone in the United States, because you're not selling from coast to coast, or at least not yet, right? But
yeah, we primarily focus, because we're located in Eastern North Carolina. Any of the ads that we do for the wooden buildings are typically within about 50 miles of our locations. And our locations they're spread out about 35 miles from the center point, which is Princeton. We go about 35 miles east to Kinston and about 35 miles southwest to Dunn. And so they kind of have a pretty good overlap of 50, 60 miles from Princeton generally is about the range that we promote our wooden buildings in. With our metal buildings, we promote out to Virginia, North Carolina, and South Carolina. So those ads are a very different, structure. A little challenging when you're on our website. We have to be clear about where we actually service with different items. So we don't want to have people trying to buy buildings in Virginia that we can't sell them if they're a wooden building, for example. And when that does happen, we usually refer them to one of our other dealers. It's a related dealer in the Old Hickory network to be able to send them over there to take advantage of their local customer service.
Sure.
Doesn't happen. Very, very rare that it happens. Most people realize that that we are far away. If they're looking for a wooden building, they don't usually ask us for those.
Yeah.
No, it makes good sense. So what do you feel like, gosh, we can definitely get into the weeds on the technical stuff. For sure. I'll tell you what, just ad lib for a minute on kind of what you feel like has been some of what you're willing to share. One thing that I want to be cognizant of is no secret sauce, keep your competitive advantage to yourself and all of those things. But my thought is there is a place where we can meet. If you take the spoke on the wheel as the seller, let's just look at that one. Let's just look at that one dynamic. There are areas that you can compete, but that you can also share in information that helps the greater good of the community, of the shed industry. And it's not actually, I don't take a hard approach that says if they can't, if they're a 1 and I'm at a 9, I can't even let them get to a 2. I don't think letting them get to a 2 by helping with information hurts you. I think it helps the industry as a whole, and we get more customers, probably setting the expectations more clearly. That's why it's important what we put out on video. I think that's why it's important whenever we have rental returns and things like that. We have to be careful that we don't present an image that we're looking for trouble, or that we're, that's a big concern with a lot of companies who do rent to own or rental returns and things like that. I mean, and just listening to people, they'll tell you that's a concern. I know there's companies that have tried to remedy that, and I'm rambling. I'm sorry, but I want you to ad lib just sort of on what you feel like you've seen and what's the most helpful that can be generalized information.
Well, I'd say just from selling perspective, the customer service, going out to greet the customer as soon as it's appropriate, and obviously that varies based on a lot of factors. We have a lot of customers that come to our location that say, you are the only people to come out and greet us in the parking lot. And that seems to make a difference. So I've heard of many dealers that will never leave their office. They may have reasons. Maybe it's health, maybe it's mobility, maybe it's hot outside. I don't know. But we do our best when appropriate to go out and wait for the customer to turn their car off and get out of their car, because we also have customers that I don't know if they can just look better than other people, but they drive through our lot so fast. I don't know what they're looking for, but we just call it a drive-by because they come in and they're out in 30 seconds. I don't know if they saw something they liked and they thought it was something else and they realized it wasn't, or if they're looking for something specific. There's no way they could see all the inventory that we have in 30 seconds, even with our lot being organized. There's no way to be able to see everything. So I don't know what they goes through their heads when they do that. But we do tend to go out to see the customer. So if we're not on the phone or with another customer at the moment, we will go out and meet them as soon as they get out of their car. I wouldn't want to go out too early. Sometimes it's a little awkward if you're standing there and the person's finishing up a phone call and you're kind of standing, hovering over them. That's not great. So I wouldn't recommend doing that. But I would definitely recommend being proactive and going out and greeting the customer in a very warm and genuine way, and then offering to help them find what they're looking for and point them in the right direction if they'd like to go out and walk around by themselves, or if they'd like to be led around on a little bit of a tour. We're happy to do that and show them all the different buildings. ask the questions. It's a great fact-finding time where you can find out what they're going to use the building for, how big of a space they have, possibly what their budget is, what kind of style they need, whether it's a garage or a small workshop. All those factors go into how I would guide someone around the sales lot and make suggestions on what might work best for their particular needs.
ShedHub.com is the shed industry's very first two-sided marketplace that allows you, the shed seller, to list your inventory on a site specifically designed for selling sheds. ShedHub establishes more qualified sales leads and helps your customers find you with a simple online search. Shoppers searching where to buy sheds and sheds near me have grown by 200% in the last 2 years. This means even if the buyer wants to visit a sales lot to purchase a shed, their shed buying journey started with a simple Google search. They can actually check out and purchase the shed straight from ShedHub if they prefer to shop online. ShedHub does not charge any commission for sheds you sell. We simply charge the monthly subscription. Your sales commission is still yours to keep. Sheds listed on ShedHub will have first page search results in 91% of cities, or where to buy sheds is searched. For special pricing only available through Shed Geek, simply go to geek.shedhub.com to see the promo codes that allow you to save as much as 50% off the first 12 months of your subscription, and over 75% for companies with multiple sales locations. Sell more sheds using shedhub.com. No, that sounds great. I agree with you. One thing I remember really focusing on was overcoming customer objectives, just to sort of challenge the thought, because I would get this confusing kind of message. Go out, greet the customer, always greet the customer initially, and then you get home and say you go with someone from your family and they shop and they say, they're in the car and they're like, oh no, here comes the sales guy, right? This is all what they're talking about while they're in the car. Husband's got a hold of his wallet, you know what I mean? And then you're having the conversation as a consumer. You're having the conversation, hey, who's doing the talk? I'll do the talking. You know, it's kind of like one of those things where it's like you have to have this formulated plan because the big bad salesman's going to get you. But then a lot of people have pointed out, I don't know, my voice just cracked there, but a lot of people have just pointed out that it's still best to initially greet the customer and just let them know you're there to help, and then kind of decipher from there if you want to let them, hey, do you want to go on your own, or would you like for me to accompany you?
Yeah, and that's how we really try to go about it. We really don't want to come across as the proverbial used car salesman that's slick and high pressure and trying to use some verbal jujitsu to try to get people to buy something. We want to come across as genuine advisors, trusted advisors, honestly, so they can trust that what we're saying and suggesting makes sense to their budget, makes sense to their purpose for the building, and gives them the best deal that we can offer with the range of products that we have. And I really try to instill that in my salespeople. Luckily, most of them are my family, so I have a pretty good leverage with them. And the one that's not in my family, he's a close family friend. So, we're able to advise them and say, I was able to hear, sometimes I'll be at the office and I'll hear them talking with customers, and I'll make suggestions if I hear something that I'm like, yeah, that didn't quite sound the way that I would like it to sound. We do also have cameras installed at our offices, so I can drop into any of the offices to see if the salespeople are busy before I call them, or to see how they're doing with particular customers, maybe listen in and determine if the conversation is going in the right direction or if there's anything that we could improve. And I might whisper to them, hey, ask them this, or can you next time don't use these terms or use this phrase, or whatever the particular case might be.
Do you believe that high pressure works? Do you believe that's the way the majority of the industry?
I don't think high pressure is the way to go. I do think where we do really well is the giving the people a presentation of our product line, showing them our range of items, options, sizes, styles, collecting from them what they need, and then giving them a really nice package quotation for their building, whether it's a metal or a wooden building, and giving them all the details spelled out. So they have all the information that they need to make an adult decision about the product. And then we ask them, would you like to buy this building? Or can we get the paperwork started? Or does this work for your needs? So you want to use some kind of pressure, but it doesn't need to be high pressure. One thing that I think works well from a selling perspective is to ask the person a yes or no binary question. Would you like to buy this building? That's probably the most direct way to do it. However, it may not be the most appropriate way in every case. And then after you ask that yes/no question, be quiet. Do not ramble. Just ask the question. Let the person sit in silence, because they will not be able to withstand the silence very long, because they will have to answer at some point. If you're in a conversation, you've talked with a person 10 or 15 minutes, and you ask them a yes/no question, and you stop talking, they're going to want to fill that silence.
You got to fill the space, don't you?
You got to fill it. So it works really well.
I do it on the show as well. I try to realize, to be better at my craft, that if there's a moment in the space where, they say there's 4 conversations happening in every conversation: me and you talking, and then what both of us are saying in our head, because you're formulating your answer to the question, or you're thinking and trying to talk at the same time. I'm very guilty of it, and it almost causes me paralysis. You know what I mean? Where I'm and I'm just really thinking. There's so much happening there that it's a little hard to process all that.
Get it out all at the same time, and try to make it sound grammatically correct, and time it with your breath, and time it with your thoughts. Stay on topic. So it is challenging. Yeah. For sure.
No, all that's good. What are some of your keys to success? What would you say are your key points of success that you would suggest to, say, like a new shed seller, someone who's just getting in, and they're thinking, like you said, we got in and we thought, oh no, we're not going to be able to sell any of these. And you've without sharing any of that information, you've been very successful. We've had some of those conversations, and I applaud you for all you've done, for sure. But what advice would you give to someone who hasn't quite hit that yet?
Well, I would say there are some things that can dramatically affect your business. And even being in business for 8 years now, seeing the differences in the flow of traffic at my 3 different locations on the same day, for example, we may have one location that's very busy. They might normally see 3 or 4 visitors a day, and they might have 10 or 15 that come in on just a random day. And the other ones that normally is busy might be slow. Or we have one that at the moment is still a new lot, and it's not very high traffic yet. And we're still trying to figure out, are we missing something? Or are we in a bad location? Which is, location is key. So visibility, traffic flow, accessibility, the presentation of your lot, how much people can see from the road as they drive by. All of those things are very important to your overall presentation. Sometimes it takes a while to become established. Sometimes, and I've heard of some dealers in some new areas, like in California, they set up a shed lot there, and they sold something like $300,000 or $400,000 in buildings in the first month. And that's just got to be a combination of good location, maybe an underserved market, and someone that knows how to sell something, or learned very quickly how to sell something that people wanted, because that's a dramatic number in the first couple of months for anybody to sell that many buildings, I think. I believe the highest that we've sold for wooden buildings at one location was something around $250,000 in a month, but that was after like 3 or 4 years. So yeah. You can really move these buildings if you get the right keys, whether it's competition is weak in your area, or you've hit some advertising, or people just need it. I really did think that during the opening months of the pandemic back in May, June, July of 2020, I thought we might be out of business, because I felt in my gut that if people are going to make the choice between buying a building for their backyard and eating or paying their mortgage, that they would certainly hang on to their money, and they wouldn't necessarily need a building. But because so many people, I believe, were having to work from home, they were having to clear out their kids' bedrooms that were full of junk. So they were buying buildings, and we had some of our best months ever during the beginning of the pandemic, when everything was so uncertain. It was crazy.
What I love is that some folks don't even know that it is possible. Even sharing what you did here today, I mean, I could remember running across a dealer who had sold for 20 years, and this is no knock towards that dealer. He was a very nice guy, very, very professional and very successful in the businesses that he had been in, but it was sort of a side gig, right? You know, like it was just kind of on the side. And I remember saying, what's a good month, you know, here? And he said about 30,000. And I said, well, what's a blow it out of the water kind of month? Like, you're really doing good. Most shed sellers probably won't see more than that. And he's like, well, probably 50, 60,000 a month. And we've been selling for 20 years and we've not seen anything more than that. And it's like, wow, did you know you can sell, you know, 150,000 a month? Nah, it's just not possible. So the mindset, really, not even having the mindset right. And it's like, well, what if it's possible because I've done it? You know what I mean? What if then? Yeah. So you'd have a hard time convincing somebody who's done it that it's not possible. So then it tells you that you're just vulnerable in information. It doesn't mean that you're unsuccessful. It just means that you haven't perfected your craft, or maybe this other adventure has taken more of your attention than knowing what actually exists in the potential of sales.
Yeah, definitely. And there are those dealers that they can be both successful or maybe by other measures unsuccessful if they are in a split business, where you see car dealers that have the wooden buildings, maybe trailers, wooden buildings, and I've seen furniture stores, hardware stores. Some of those can be a good fit. I know there's a dealer down in South Carolina that has a furniture store, and he's been killing it in South Carolina for many years. So he's able to balance those things out, because that's two totally different buyers looking for furniture and someone looking for a shed, where in our case, we focus on the metal buildings and the wooden buildings. And generally, if someone's looking for a storage building, they'll fall into one of those two categories. If they need a small portable building, they go with wood. If they want a larger building, they're going with a metal building and a garage, or a large carport, for example. And so we kind of have those things all covered. And we've looked at adding other things to expand onto our product offering. And we'll probably do that over the next few months, to have some other things that fit in with the kind of buyers that might be coming already, instead of having to cultivate brand new awareness and brand new product lines that are completely unrelated to our building business.
Ryan, I'm coming up against a hard stop at 2:00. I'll stop recording here in a minute, and we can just exchange info real quick for a minute. I'll be on the road next week, so I'll try to reach out. One last final thought, and stay on here after I quit recording, because I do just want to chat for one quick second before this hard stop. Like, do you, Leaders or Readers is one of my favorite podcasters, says, what do you do? Do you read? Do you do personal development? Is it podcast, audiobooks? What type of personal or professional sales development do you do, or do you suggest?
Well, I'm more of a video guy. I've done several video courses to try to improve my skills as both a leader and a salesperson, and also a marketer. I do also believe in audio. I have listened to a really good audio called Being the Hypnotic Salesman. And that one was very interesting. It was about 11 hours long, and it talks about how to use hypnotism, or language that's structured in a certain way, to speak to people in a way that they don't even know that you're actually getting to their subconscious while you're trying to sell them whatever you're selling them. And I've shared that with my salespeople to help them try to be better. Some of them have taken advantage of it, some haven't. But that's something that I think is very effective. If you can use the video, use the audio, so that the audio is great because you can play it in the car while you're driving. The video, obviously not very safe to do that while you're driving, so I wouldn't recommend that. And there's people that like to read. I'm just not an avid reader myself, but I do have some books on marketing that I have read.
That's great, man. Well, I know that you've had lots of success. Again, every time I talk to you, I feel like I'm better for it. And I appreciate your dedication to the industry, and certainly your willingness to be a friend and an interviewee and an audience participant. It means a lot to me. And
all right.
I think so many people can learn from these events, and then you can take these events and do so many things with it. Of course. You take this, and I mean, you're a content creator, I can share this file with you, and you can take this and chop it up and put it on your socials and do so many things with it that just helps.
Yeah, I'd love to do that. I think it's been great for both of us.
Perfect, man. Well, stay on here. I'll quit recording, and we'll chat for a minute before I get on this other call.
Okay, sounds good.